in times like these. Hi, I'm Dr. William Teeley, and this is episode 2 of our video series created really for a stressful time like what our culture is going through right now. Today in episode 2, I wanted to share about the creation of a compassion school and how stressful times tend to become a compassion school, a time for training us in how to really live our highest ideals. In my opinion, this forming of a compassion school has 3 primary components, and they are contemplation, compassion, and service. So just a brief scripture, this time shared out of Christian scriptures. This is out of the second letter to the Corinthian people, written by the Apostle Paul many years ago, and this is from his second letter, Corinthians, the first chapter, and from verses 3 through 7. There it says, "Praise be to the source of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles, so that we can comfort others with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." So that sense of drawing towards the source of compassion, who provides us with comfort, which we can turn around and share with those around us. That's really a good verse to capture the essence of compassion school, of contemplation, compassion, and service. Today I want to share some ways that I believe these 3 factors work together, and to start with, just to focus in on contemplation and what is that? Why is that important in our lives? In contemplative practice, we enter into the templum, or the Latin word for the temple, or the inner sanctuary. We go there to seek the source of wisdom and love we need for our own lives. We open to a presence, a life force of big love, higher and greater than our own small minds and our endless plans to try to control the world around us. We draw near to this presence with an open heart and mind, dropping that planning mind and becoming receptive to the contemplative mind. This is something that the Tibetan Buddhists sometimes refer to as blue sky mind. We become willing to have our own hearts and visions expanded beyond our limited capacity, and we become ready to engage in small acts with great love because we are becoming sourced by the great love. All of us have had moments when we have a sense of this presence larger than ourselves. We feel a sense of oneness or connectedness to nature, the natural world, to each other, just to the whole planet, to that something that is bigger than us. So aligning our lives with this presence, this great love, evolves us into compassionate beings and transforms us into beings who radiate compassion. Of course, we're normal human beings with our normal fears and faults, reluctances and resistances and angers and animosities. We've all seen how we can be at our worst when we live out of that place as a culture. But underneath all our brokenness is pure gold. This is a place of wholeness that is down inside of us, and we become aware of that place when we're really centering ourselves in the great love deep within, in that inner sanctuary. Contemplation is visiting this inner sanctuary, this place of wholeness beneath our brokenness, and practicing that presence of the divine, of that great love. And then contemplative practice fills and fuels our compassion in many ways. This form of sourcing, in my opinion, needs to happen before we serve. So taking time for contemplation before we engage the service of the world around us, especially in times like this that are so stressful. This kind of sourcing of ourselves also needs to happen as much as our service of the world. So our giant changes that we're going through as a culture, much less time all gathered together in large groups and much more time on our own, in a way gives us a chance to reset that balance. So sourcing ourselves as much as we seek to serve the world around us. The next part of that is that sourcing ourselves can also happen while we are serving. If we're remembering that sense of presence of the great love in us, all around us, between us, then we don't have to do contemplation now and service later. The two can really go hand in hand, but it does require our setting our intention, and in my opinion, practicing even before we begin to engage in service. So there's 3 of the 5 principles that are important to me about contemplative, compassionate service. Sourcing before we serve, sourcing as much as we serve, and sourcing while we're serving. The other 2 principles are these, that we all need periods of the great walk away, times when we really step back from service so that we can renew and rejuvenate ourselves. In another way, the giant changes in our culture right now might be giving us an opportunity for that moment of great walk away, more space between the times when we engage in our service back and forth in rhythm. And finally, this lifestyle of contemplative, compassionate service can also give us the chance to really experience living on the liminal threshold. People use, especially from Celtic spirituality, the term liminal to mean a space that is sacred, moments when we really realize the presence of the holy or something bigger than ourselves. But we often say that we cross a threshold into liminal moments as though they're only here or there or occasional. And what that really means is we're only occasionally awake, most of us, all of us really, to those special moments and often go to sleep the rest of the time. But a life of living in this compassion school and really practicing contemplative, compassionate service can mean we now live on that liminal threshold, awake moment by moment to the presence we need, that great source of love with us, in us, between us, all around us. So those are several principles to begin today. We're just focusing on the contemplative part, or contemplation. In the next 2 episodes, we'll address the compassion and that flow of compassion, and then service in ways that contemplative, compassionate service really becomes acts of loving kindness. But for now, let's take a few moments to practice together, a brief few moments of contemplative practice. You can leave your eyes open, or if you want to close your eyes, do that. If you leave your eyes open, you might want to just drop your gaze for a moment and listen in. Then taking several slow, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, and releasing and letting go, especially as we breathe out on the out breath. And again. And then adopting an alert and yet relaxed posture so that the body gets the message that we're sitting with dignity and yet relaxing into a comfortable posture at the same time. Then choose a sacred word or sound or image or even the sacred breath, some place to bring your attention back to each time the mind wanders, which it always does over and over. So just take a moment now to see what you want to use as your comeback place, bringing awareness back into this moment of contemplative practice. I happen to use the sacred breath, which is just the breath, but is a sacred gift to all of us. You use whatever you want, something to help bring the attention back each time it wanders. And now begin to turn towards the inner stillness, the inner sanctuary, the place of wholeness beneath our brokenness. Tune into that place where you know you are worthy of love and belonging. Entering this inner sanctuary, which is deep within us all, we tune into the divine center of our beings. We remember we are at home in the great love. Allow your thoughts and sensations to come and go as they will, to do what they always do, and not really worrying about them, not trying to get rid of them. But as the mind wanders away to thoughts, sensations, feelings, impulses, memories, etc., just noticing that for these moments and bringing your attention back into here and now. Opening our hearts and minds to this presence of great love at the very source of our beings. You can continue this practice for as long as you want. For some of us, a few minutes is enough. For some of us, longer periods, like 10 or 20 or 30 minutes or more, are needed to really give our minds time to gradually settle, to remember our intention, to source ourselves, to be in contemplation, or in the templum, the temple, the inner sanctuary, the divine center. Take as long as you want for that practice today. In our changing world, we have time for this. And watch for the next step in our sequence of explorations called In Times Like These. That's the end for now of episode 2.